sports teams did you watch growing up?
Well, being from the Pittsburgh area, pretty big sports town. Definitely watched the Steelers. They were probably the first professional team that I was really into, and then closely followed by the Pirates, and then of course the Penguins as well. Um, Watched all three as a kid. Still watch all three right now as an adult, and also really got into Pitt basketball and football. That's the University of Pittsburgh. When I was a teenager, and then when they have good seasons, they're a lot easier to follow. But the professional teams right now, it's really easy to still follow the Steelers. But the Pirates, they are so terrible with
I
a
was about
horrible
to ask
owner.
about that. How you keep managing to watch the Pirates every year?
It's tough. I mean, I don't watch as many games as I used to because I think the whole town is pretty much fed up with the owner right now.
Right.
I still follow them in the paper every day or online, the results, and I know the players and kind of their stats and stuff like that. Yeah, but they are an annoying team to have as your favorite baseball team. But yeah, and the Penguins, obviously when we got Crosby, easy to root for. Still easy to root for. Class guy, one of the top 5 NHL guys ever in my opinion. And then the Steelers, Steeler Nation. I mean, you're always up for a Steeler game. So yeah, that's pretty much how that went down.
Do you still watch the Penguins regularly?
The Penguins not as much. I'll probably watch maybe 20 games a year or portions of.
Especially considering how they're playing right now.
Yeah, exactly. The interest did drop off. It's tough to go from such highs to like pretty, now that they're not even making the playoffs. They're a few points out every year, hopefully. But there is hope every year, at least with the Penguins, unlike the Pirates. The Pirates, it seems to be false hope. But the Penguins seem to have real hope still. At least we have some superstars.
What sports teams do you mainly follow now?
Well, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, the 3 Pittsburgh teams. So still follow the NFL closely, baseball and hockey. I do not follow NBA basketball, except for this league, for purposes for this fantasy league we're in. I do follow Premier League soccer from England and Champions League soccer as well, or football, but the European stuff. But that's pretty much it right now. I find those 4 keep me pretty occupied.
Do you think you follow the Premier League good enough to be an expert on it?
No, not an expert.
Well, not an expert maybe, but you could talk about it?
I could talk about certain teams. There's a lot of teams in the EPL, so yeah, I could talk about a few of them, maybe a handful, but there's no way I could talk about the entire league as a whole, besides looking at a table and telling you who's doing good and bad.
Yeah. Standings.
But I have a lot of family in England, so they're really into it. So that helps me kind of still have interest in it, especially the teams that they root for.
How many hours off are they?
Was that?
How many hours off are they, like time zone wise?
Oh, about 6 hours ahead of us in Pittsburgh. I think that it switches with the daylight savings, but yeah, about 6 hours, I think. 5-6 hours.
And the Premier League schedule is based off that too, then?
Yeah, it's usually...
So you got to be watching their games at weird times?
Yeah, it's like on NBC, they do run them on NBC, or they were, I'm not sure if they even still are, but they're usually like on Saturdays, like at 11 a.m., and then it's like, in the evening there, or beginning to enter the evening.
What fantasy sports have you done before?
Obviously, fantasy football. I've been doing that for years and years and years. I'm one of the guys that started off using the pen and paper and having to check the scores in the newspaper before anything was really online much.
I kind of feel like what we're doing now is almost like pen and paper.
Yeah, it's reverted back to that a little bit. It keeps you a little more engaged in that sense where you're actually looking at something tangible rather than just a screen all the time. But yeah, fantasy football for years and years, different iterations of that. I've done fantasy hockey on the ESPN platform, and Fantasy Pros, I believe it was, or something like that. I can't remember the name. What was that called?
You mean Fan Tracks?
Fan Tracks, yeah. Did not like Fan Tracks as a fantasy site.
Not many people like the Fan Tracks.
But yeah, done hockey. Was pretty successful at hockey. Been pretty successful at fantasy football. Never did the NBA, just because didn't have as much interest in it. And MLB, I've toyed with the idea of doing it, but it's just a little too much work. It's I enjoy following baseball, but having to set a lineup every day, with games being played 7 days a week and
pitching rotations.
yeah, and larger benches and stuff like that just didn't interest me. Hockey was a little more. I know hockey's similar to it, but it seemed a little more manageable to me. So that's why I tried that and enjoyed it as well. But definitely fantasy football right now. Now trying these new leagues, which I like a good bit.
And what do you like about that specifically?
Well, I definitely like the fact that once you do the draft, you kind of just get to sit back and see how your strategy's played out. I like the fact too that you don't have to worry about ad drops every day or follow what everybody else is doing. I like that there's specified time frames where you can do trades, or where you can pick up teams. Definitely like the fact that the one draft goes multiple years even. So that makes it interesting that you do it once, and then you can follow it for a few years before you have to do it again, if you even have to do it again.
Yeah, I mean that was part of the idea when we did it, because I feel like in most leagues that if you're not doing well and you have to set lineups, like who wants to sit around and set up a lineup and you know your team's gonna lose? Like that's the most annoying thing there is. So in this league, not only do you not have to set the lineup, but there's incentive to be somewhat engaged the entire year, just because you're not just playing for this year, you're playing for the next year and the one after that. So, even the trading periods when they happen, it's worth your time to go in there and see what's going on, because maybe something that's going on might help you later down the road. I mean, I've already been talking during the last trading video, Mike's already decided he's on 2026 already. Like he's already 2025 is already done. He's already planning for 2026.
Sounds like it's like it mirrors real teams in real life. The teams in real life. Obviously the Pirates are playing for 2020. I don't know. They may be playing for 2035 right now. I'm not exactly sure. But
who knows what they're doing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. You can look to the future. I like that. Everything is not lost all at once. And one of the biggest pet peeves in standard fantasy leagues, like even fantasy football, is like you just said, when someone loses interest, there's more of a chance that they stop even setting lineups, and then other teams get free wins, and it can be an annoyance to everybody in the league. When other people lose interest, you want everybody engaged, and I do agree that in this league, the engagement factor seems to be easier to maintain, or will be easier to maintain in the future.
This is something I have not hit on yet on another interview either, but one of my biggest pet peeves about fantasy sports was head-to-head leagues. Everybody's going to say a head-to-head league gets more entertaining because you're going against your buddy every time. Right. Okay, except for the fact that you lose that week because the other guy just happened to have the most points that week, and then you had the second most amount of points. Now, okay, you say that's bad luck. But if that happens to you 4 or 5 weeks in a row, and you have one of the best teams out there, and you're still losing the league because of matchup luck, that's effed up.
Yes.
And that's when I was just like, this is not right. So, but I also don't like rotisserie leagues so much, because if you're behind in the beginning, then it's really hard to get caught back up again. So, I think we tried to, I tried, but everybody helped me find something that took away all the annoyances of the other leagues to make it better.
Right, and we had tried both versions of fantasy hockey, where it was the cumulative categories each week that you're doing instead of head to
Well, the
head.
problem with the categories one was that you couldn't go in there and edit it.
Oh, that's true. That's
So
true.
that's why I ended up switching to the points league because you had your limits, and somebody refused to follow the limit order, then you had to have some way of punishing for them. But in the categories, there was no way to punish him. So you just got stuck with what you won, and then it wasn't 100% fair. And I don't know. That's just a rabbit hole you go down to in fantasy sports. How do you make it 100% fair?
Yeah, the system can always be rigged, it seems, in some form or fashion.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, it's the other thing too is in this league, being that we started it off with the auction league. What I really liked about it, one of the things obviously in snake drafts is, especially this league, if you end up pulling number one, it's just by pure luck that you get the best team out there, which I think most of us are in agreement right now. It would be the Dodgers would be the safest pick. But at least in this one, everybody had a shot at any team they wanted. Um, that was important. And everybody got to decide what every single team was worth to them. And I thought that was important. It leveled the playing field right from the bat. It wasn't anything drawn out of a hat. It was everybody deciding on their own what every individual team would be worth to them and then placing bids accordingly. So I definitely always prefer the auction structure whenever it's available. But in this league especially, because of the multiple years you can keep teams, I really thought that evened the playing field right off the bat. Appreciated that.
I agree. Did you have a specific strategy going into the draft?
Being that I had done auction drafts in fantasy football fairly extensively before I did, with this one, the main thing I was looking for was value um, over quality. So I was willing to not bid up some quality teams if I figured there might be more value with lesser quality teams. But I did want to get specific areas covered uh, with teams that I felt would have done good in the past and would do good in the future. So obviously the one strategy that I used was I pretty much nominated teams that I did not want. So other people would buy them and have less funds to spend. The second one was I just wanted to do two from each league, make sure I got two from each league based off our scoring. And then the third team that I was going to do was just going to be based on value at the end, whatever I thought would have the best possibility to get scoring. The other strategy that I went in knowing that I wanted to try was I wanted to keep teams for as long as possible. So I wasn't looking for one
I was
hit
going to bring that
wonders.
one up for sure.
Yeah. If you look at what I ended up drafting, I have a lot of 5-year teams. The Celtics I'll come back and talking about in a second because they kind of changed some stuff up on me after I spent a good bit.
Is you look at this. Assuming we do this league for 5 years, what are you planning to do in 2029?
I don't know yet. I don't know. I did notice while we were doing the draft that there were a lot of the other
I mean, you
teams
could
that are
definitely
good.
go after the Dodgers because they'll be available.
Exactly.
And you have all your money.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, there was a lot of other guys keeping teams for 5 years too, so I figured, well, in the end, there will be teams available.
That's gonna be a mega year for a free agency.
Yeah, and in 5 years too, there could end up being a salary cap in baseball. We never know. And finances
You really
of leagues
think
can
so?
change. There could be. You never know. I don't think there will be, but things change in sports. So we don't really know. 5 years is a long time down the road. But that was one of the reasons. Like for example, for hockey, I had identified the Golden Knights right away as a team I wanted because ever since they entered the league, they've been successful. Same thing with the Steelers. Haven't won a playoff game in years and years and years and years, which is ridiculous. But they always are in the hunt. So the chance of getting a negative score on them, I felt, was going to be pretty low. lower than other teams. It seemed like the Bengals is a team that, one year they do real good and the next year they suck pretty bad, it seems. But I picked those up and the Bengals up in free agency for $1, so I thought that was a okay value. 49ers, I felt I got on the cheap just because they had a bad year before. But I also looked in football for the Lions. I like because they have their quarterback situation settled for the next few years, and they have a good coach. And the same thing I thought about the Niners was that they had their quarterback figured they were going to sign Purdy to an extension, which they did. And they have a good coach, so why not go for that? Basketball, Celtics was not, they're always in contention. Great GM, great president, good coach. I wasn't expect them to do a fire sale this offseason, but I understand why they're doing it to get under the luxury or the cap thresholds and all that. But I think the Celtics will still be in it, but moving forward, I think they're one of the top NBA organizations. And then the Phillies and MLB definitely was looking at the value with them from the standpoint is I know the Phillies are going to spend money every year. They're not going to end up being like the Pirates. They're going to be one of the top, 7, 8 spending teams in MLB, maybe even higher. And then the Brewers, on the other hand, even though they can't afford the highest payrolls, I know that their division is always competitive, and they always seem to navigate that division well, familiar with it because the Pirates are in it. So I figured that the Brewers, more so because of the division, and they do have good management, they end up with pretty good players, there would be value in them. And I think we did pretty well on those. Now, definitely looking back on it, definitely feel like I overpaid for the Celtics. Probably would have rathered going after the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I don't think Anthony was going to let you get the Thunder.
Looking back on him, he probably wouldn't, but I would have went much higher on them, knowing what I know now about the Celtics. But that being said, that was the main strategy. It was value rather than picking one specific team. However, it did come down to two of us bidding on the Dodgers. And I was the last bidder out. I was willing to pay a massive premium for them, just because their payroll is so far ahead of anybody else in MLB. And they seem to always have good prospects. It's such a well-run organization that definitely felt that you could put a premium on them over value. After them, that was a little tougher.
Yeah, much better to go after the Dodgers than the Braves, but that's where I'm at now. But talking about that, I'm really curious to see what happens with everybody's value. If how many people end up with a minus by the time this is all over. Because, we all went into this mostly looking at it, what the current value was, and I don't think anybody was really expecting teams that they bid on that are currently really high to just drop off the face of the earth like some of them have, like the Braves have, maybe just for this year. But I feel like that's going to happen more. And Celtics is probably another one that's going to drop significantly. And I'm curious to see if by the end of this, everybody ends up with a team that just didn't pan out anywhere near like they thought it was.
Yeah, there's a chance everybody could end up with a -5 or a -4 where they were thinking they were going to get a +4 or +5. The one league expressly where that can happen, I feel, is the NFL. Because you can have a team like the Chiefs. If Mahomes were to get hurt, that can change the outlook drastically. Single players in the NFL can change entire seasons. And there's a lot of parity in the NFL, and there's a lot of teams that are on the cusp every year. They're on the cusp between, only 1 or 2 wins can change a score at the season-ending score from a -2 to a 2. And that's a big swing. That's a 4-point swing. But it could equate to just one or two regular season wins, because there's a lot of parity in that league. Where in baseball, things are a little more spread out. There's a lot of parity in the NBA, but things do get spread out. Hockey has a ton of parity as well. Boy, overtime losses. If there's a team that ends up with 10 to 15 overtime losses, not getting those points can make him go from finishing fourth to maybe 10th. And that could make you lose some points. You could go from getting 3 points to negative 3 points, just by one team doing poorly in overtime.
And that's the league that you already know at some point, one of those teams, every year it seems like the ones that are most consistent that you never think are going to drop off, all of a sudden do. Like the Bruins is a good example last year.
Bruins, never thought Bergeron retiring would have such an effect on them, and it seemed to. The other team, the Rangers, look at the Rangers. They were everyone's darling the previous season, and last year they were poor. They were bad.